Hello and a warm welcome to Federal Special Program Capital Beat. Election Commission today issued a notice to BJP President JP Nadda seeking his comments on the complaints against Prime Minister Narendra Modi for indulging in hate speeches in Rajasthan. Now remember what happened on 21st April when Prime Minister was in Banswara, which is part of Rajasthan. He said that Muslims are infiltrators. There's a community which produces many kids. Then he made a reference to former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's speech where he said that the first claim on the resources of the country is by the minorities. So all these comments were seen as a hate speech. And till there were a lot of complaints which were lodged by the Congress, CPI and CPI-ML. And today, Election Commission has woken up. But what has it really done with this notice? Now, let me tell you, apart from the notice being sent to JP Nadda, there is a notice which has been sent to Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge for a speech of Rahul Gandhi where he indulged in a cultural and linguistic divide. That's what the notice says. But what is very, very glaring in this notice is that this notice does not mention the violators, identifies them as star campaigners. It hasn't invoked any of the IPC and the RP and the sections under the RP Act, which were part of the complaint which was sent by Congress, CPI and CPI-ML. So the big question we are asking today is that does this kind of a notice which has been sent to the party presidents and not to the star campaigners directly, does it really do little to allay the fears and the concerns over the Election Commission's lenience towards the ruling party? Joining me now is a very special guest, Najeeb Jung, who's been the former LG of Delhi, and he's also part of the Constitutional Conduct Group. So thank you so much for joining. And my first question to you, sir, is what would you really make out of the notice now which has been sent not to Narendra Modi, but to Party President JP
Nadda? I think that the Election Commission, which everybody knows and believes is completely compromised, is trying to pull the wool over our eyes. I mean, either they think that the country are fools, that people will not understand what they are doing, because neither Mr. Nadda nor Mr. Kharge have anything to do with these speeches. So the Election Commission, which is under the Constitution, empowered with a lot of powers, including taking action under criminal laws, 153A. It's really shocking that that they should have done this. And you know, if I was in the Congress party, or if I was in any other party, or if I was an activist, I would have gone to the Supreme Court straight away, because nothing can be expected from the Election Commission now.
But people still, have faith that, something will happen. Maybe Rajiv Kumar, who's the chief election commissioner, wakes up one day because there is so much of international pressure. All the international media had been writing about Modi's speech. Then there was pressure from your Constitutional Conduct Group. There were a lot of petitions which was society as well. But even then, if Rajiv Kumar sends a notice like this, what one can really make of? Do we have really any hope left from the Election Commission now?
150 years ago, Ghalib wrote a line, "Kaun jeeta hai teri zulf ke sar hone tak." These guys will do nothing. I mean, like I said, they are pulling the wool over our eyes. They are, to my mind, not acting as per their constitutional oath at all. Whether it is fear, whether it is some other kind of compromise, one can't say. But I think that you can expect nothing more than a routine notice, because they are forced to issue that notice, and nothing will come out of it. So it's high time that people who have complained to the Election Commission looked at other means and methods if they're interested in further action.
But looking at the way things are, and tomorrow is the second phase of the general election, and we have 5 more phases to go, and with a kind of a complete lack of faith in the Election Commission, what is the kind of election which is being held this year, sir? When you know that the Election Commission is totally compromised, is what you said, They're just trying to pull the wool over the eyes of the people. So what is the kind of election we are really holding? If Election Commission has just turned a blind eye towards everything. Yeah.
Neelu, the public of India is very, very wise. It's not necessary that only political parties fight elections. I think the Janta itself fights elections. I'll take you back, perhaps you were not born in 1977, but I was very much there in the field conducting that election when Mrs. Gandhi lost. And when the Janta Party was formed, they had only 3 or 4 weeks before election time. They didn't even have a political party at that time. All kinds of people were getting together. And then the CFD came in with Bahugna ji and Nandini Satpathy, and they all joined together. And it was, shall I say, a blinding election. A party that had just been formed. They had no workers. They had no funds. They had all been in jail, 19 months in jail. But the people woke up, and people woke up the parties of India. So I would say, and the news that one gets from Western UP, I don't know other parts of the country, but one keeps hearing things from the first phase in Western UP, that it's the people who are fighting this election. So the Election Commission can sit in their echo chambers and be pleased at what they are doing. And what can they do? Okay. Let them not issue notices. Let them not punish violators of the Constitution. But so what? The election will be fought, and the people will fight the election.
But as you said, that now the option is to go to the court. So do you think, I mean, we've not heard from the Congress party or from other parties whether they are approaching the Supreme Court, but do you think that this could be the final conclusion to this whole episode of how Prime Minister has spoken and how the complaints were lodged and nothing has been done about it? So is Supreme Court the only hope now?
Yes, there is no other alternative. There is absolutely no other alternative. And as you and I speak, I'm sure the think tanks in the various opposition parties would be thinking in these lines and contacting their lawyers or whatever.
Right. Now, let me come to Prime Minister's speech, which was given in Rajasthan by him, and to call Muslims infiltrators, to call them a community which produces many children, and also to call out, as what Prime Minister said, that if India Alliance or Congress comes back to power, they will redistribute the wealth amongst the minorities. Now, what would you really say to a statement like this? I really want to hear from you, sir.
Dilu, it's a very hurtful statement. I would say that one expects compassion from the Prime Minister of India. One expects gestures of love and understanding towards all communities, whether they are minorities, whether they are scheduled tribes or scheduled castes. This generation of Muslims that he is referring to was not born at the time of partition. And those who were involved actually with the League, with the Muslim League, are dead, they are gone. So those who stayed back in the 40s, they chose to stay back in the India of Gandhi and Nehru. And when some wretched people spoke of Pakistan, there were enough who said that we will not look at Pakistan, we will look at the Constitution of India. So it is extremely hurtful, I would say. I don't like using words which aggravate situations. I think, classical, to use the word, malham ki zarurat hoti hai. The wound to the Muslim community, albeit to all minorities, is very raw at these statements. And this wound needs balm. It needs to be calmed down. So only I would say is that for future at least, the Honorable Prime Minister must avoid speaking in these terms. He must understand that this is 14-15% of India. They are bereft of leadership. They are really today the dregs of society, because economically they are way behind all other communities. Educationally, they are way behind. So in a way, the Muslims of India today are very much comparable to the Dalits in pre-partition times. So therefore, They require sensitivity. The tragedy in India is that we have forgotten, or most of us have forgotten, the concept of affirmative action. That is a realistic concept in all thriving democracies. Unfortunately, affirmative action in our country is now termed as appeasement. And so it's almost impossible to explain that what is this appeasement? I mean, I fail to see appeasement around me. There are no jobs for Muslims. Their educational institutions, the minority status of Muslim institutions is being taken away. The Maulana Azad Foundation, which gave scholarships to many Muslims, had been done away with. There is talk of the Ministry of Minority Affairs to be taken away. So this concept of appeasement is rather dead. And what Dr. Manmohan Singh meant was that affirmative action must be alive. We must, the majority community must hold hands of the weaker people. That's what he meant. He didn't say take away anything from from one and give it to the other. He spoke of a fair distribution and helping a weaker person by a stronger person.
Right. No, but we've heard repeatedly Prime Minister saying that sabka saath, sabka vikas, sabka vishwas. He repeatedly says that. But then when he makes calls like these during election rallies, what does it really go to show? How serious is the Modi government really in addressing this issue and addressing all sections of the society? Or do we conclude that it doesn't bother for this section of the society at all?
Well, the cover of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vishwas, and Sabka Vikas had been blown. In 2014, from the ramparts, the Prime Minister in his first speech said that give me 10 years of moratorium and let's forget about aggravating communal relations. That was his speech. And that's when he said, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. That cover, unfortunately, seems to have blown. These are very difficult times, I think, for the Muslim community. And we may not be saying it, but these are equally difficult times for other minorities, particularly Christians. Muslims are 14, 15%. The Christians are 2%. They get the worst end of the stick in many, many cases. And I'm afraid the Sikhs are very hurt at what's happening around us. So all in all, I think we need to reignite the philosophical concepts which were actually put forth by Jawaharlal Nehru in those very rough days of post-partition, when the wounds were very raw, and leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru or Patel or Rajan Babu, they came forth to heal those wounds to both communities. There were Muslims who stayed back and who suffered from the complex of a partition, you see. And there were Hindus who had come in who had been terribly hurt, and Sikhs who had come in who had been terribly hurt and lost everything at that tragedy. And here were these leaders trying to heal those wounds. We need leaders like that. And I'm sure that sometime our Honorable Prime Minister must speak to all minorities that they indeed have a share in everything that the country has to offer, including being sympathetic, and I use the term again, affirmative action.
No, but Mr. Jung, you remember when he spoke on Sunday, when he was in Banswara, he made all sorts of statements against the Muslim community. I'm not going to repeat that. But the very next day when he goes to Aligarh, then he says that, I've taken care of the Hajj funds. I have abolished triple talaq. And he tries to, allay some sort of fears, around the Muslim community. So, I mean, this kind of an attitude, on one day he calls them infiltrators, on the other day, then he will address the women, speaking about the abolition of triple talaq, and then he talks about that we paid money for the Hajj funds. So what does this really show? Is it some kind of a double-faced attitude towards the Muslims?
No, this is patchwork for the damage done on the previous day, and it won't make a difference. The Muslims today are thinking back of the last 7-8 years when the Prime Minister never spoke on lynching. The Prime Minister never spoke on hate speech. The Prime Minister never spoke on love jihad. The Prime Minister never spoke on the issues of covering their heads. So these are issues which have suddenly got reignited in the Muslim mind, as indeed the mind of all minorities. People quote Niemöller all the time now, what he said of Germany. So this has to change. This has to stop. We can't have an India on the development path if communities are arrayed against each other. We have a disturbed Northeast. We have a disturbed Manipur. We have issues in Arunachal. We have a troublesome neighbor in the Northwest who can't be trusted. We have now issues with Nepal and Sri Lanka. Are we going to, and there are always chances of Bangladesh going the other way. I'm already told that Bangladesh, the clergy are getting agitated and are asking Hindus to leave. So we can't afford India to be disturbed on communal lines.
Right. But do you think Prime Minister is relenting in any way? Because every day we are listening to his rallies and the speeches he's making in the rallies, and he's making oblique references almost on an everyday basis, or something or the other, which will annoy the Muslim community. So you were saying that it's a Prime Minister's responsibility to, to have the healing touch on the community, to allay their fears, to address their concerns. But he's repeatedly making the same mistakes, maybe directly or indirectly, but he's doing it almost every day.
These are difficult times even for the Prime Minister. He is looking to win a very difficult election. And if the calculation in his mind or his party's mind is that polarization will get them votes, then so be it. These statements will come. And that is where the failure of the Election Commission comes in. Like I was saying to someone that, we have had excellent election commissioners. We have had average election commissioners. But this lot is absolutely the pits. So it's actually up to the Election Commission and now the Supreme Court to sort of wheel the stick on them and tell them that they have to wake up. The Supreme Court can't do anything to the Prime Minister if he makes a speech like this, unless somebody lodges an FIR, which I'm told has been done. But that's beside the point. Here the question is that this is a large election and we have 5 more weeks to go. So it's time that somebody woke up this Election Commission of their deep, deep slumber or accommodation.
But what do you think is going to be the impact on the Muslim community? Will they vote en masse against BJP? What is the kind of impact you expect for the kind of statements which Prime Minister Modi is repeatedly making in his rallies and in the speeches he's making?
No, not only the Muslims. I think the BJP also knows that the Muslims will not vote for them. Of course, the Muslims will not vote. But contrary to the Prime Minister's expectations, I think a large non-Muslim community that is secular is hurt at this, and they may not vote for this party. Look, I have always said repeatedly, India remains secular because 80% of its population is Hindu. Had there been a different religion in this country, we may not have had a secular constitution. So therefore, there is a large contingent out there in lakhs and crores which has been hurt by this speech. And therefore, rather than polarization helping the ruling party, it may actually hurt them.
Right. One last question, Mr. Jung, that we do not know whether the government will change or not. Nobody knows the results of the elections. But if at all there is a change in the government, what happens then? Can the Election Commission be cleansed? How would you then address the maladies which we are seeing currently?
Oh, well, if there is a new government, I think one of the first acts of the new government would be to change these 3 members. I mean, they will have no business to be sitting there. I really think that if there were a change in government, this election commissioner, the chief election commissioner, will be impeached. I have no doubt in my mind, because you can't be so blatantly partisan. You can be sleepy. You can, you can be inefficient. You can drag your feet and be slow, but you can't be so partisan. That's the problem.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Jung. It was wonderful having you on the program. And one appeal to the viewers who are watching this interview, subscribe to our channel, send us your feedback, and stay tuned to The Federal.
Subscribe to The Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.